I feel like the more I tell people not to crayon 502 and 518 to skip Orchard, Raffles Hotel, and Suntec, people are go the more people are actually going to crayon these routes to actually skip those areas that I mentioned. And I think the same goes for like Tuas. The more I tell people not to crayon long distance bus services out of Tuas, even if it's like just a few trips, the more people go and crayon them. But I'm just gonna explain why it's not a good idea. So the reason for that is because if okay, let's start from Pandan over here. If you live along like Pandan or like Jalan Buroh Industrial Estate, sorry, if you work at either Pandan or like Jalan Buroh Industrial Estate, then you could get priority housing in West Coast area or like Clementi, but it's mostly West Coast. Similarly, if you happen to work like somewhere near Tuas, then you could get priority housing in Tengah, which is like the new town. And because of that, you don't want to crayon any bus route that's like beyond here, here, and at most Buona Vista. But even then, I wouldn't really recommend Buona Vista because you already have like Cross Island Line that's gonna take you up anyway. So yeah, you could say that like this is kind of like the border in which you shouldn't cross. And you could crayon one to Chua Chu Kang if you want to, but that's only because of the close proximity between Tengah and Chua Chu Kang. And Chua Chu Kang doesn't really have like a whole lot of space. That's why just crayoning it to Tengah is like way more useful. Uh, okay, and because of this, trying to crayon like a bus service from, let's say, okay, let me just draw East West Line. And let me draw out, I'm just gonna draw like the most basic lines. Okay, I know it's not accurate, but yeah. That's the reason why you don't crayon any bus route that's like kind of like beyond this area in general, and then Tengah is here. Choa Chu Kang is an exception, but it's only because of space constraints. That's why you don't, again, you don't really want to crayon any long distance bus route, whatever type of bus route it is, along like this sector or like this sector, or even like, honestly, I will say just like pretty much every single area. Do not crayon a long distance bus service from Tuas to there. Reason for this is because the demand at Tuas, unlike it's not like a suburb, it's not a residential estate, it's not a private estate or anything, it's an industrial estate. It's a niche demand. It's a niche area. The demand is niche. Like you could have a long distance bus service from Woodlands to Bedok or Woodlands to Tampines. I mean, they already exist. I'm just using these as an example. And that's because there is actually demand between here and here via the expressway. And 168 is like this. But since priority housing, again, I've explained, Tengah and West Coast, for like the industrial estate, there is pretty much no one that works at Tuas that lives along these areas. And the thing is, as long as you reach Jalan Buroh, you intercept 30 and you can already reach a lot of places. So that's all the more why you shouldn't crayon a bus service from Tuas that's like already along East-West Line. I mean, there have been like concerns saying that like, oh, I don't want to make Tuas so hub spoke, or like the MRT lines are too crowded. So number one, the only reason why Tuas is unfortunately hub spoke is because of the niche demand and the unique demand patterns that are like within. they used to have like a few long distance bus services from like shipyard area. It's like service 10 or like 182, SBS 182, which later became Tips 182 and then got withdrawn. I mean that one, they had long distance bus services. There was even like 175, which was from like Prince Edward Road, which later became Shenton Way, via Bukit Batok, and then Jurong West to Tuas. There used to be this one bus service, but obviously it got withdrawn. So, I mean, yeah, that's the reason why there's no long distance bus service, because nobody really takes them, especially within Tuas. And the thing is, like, obviously you have these that bring you to Joo Koon. That's kind of hub spoke. But then 192 and 193, they exist, and they are not very hub spoke. They are trunk routes. This one serves Jurong West Avenue 4. This one serves Jurong West Street. It used to serve Jurong West Avenue 4 as well, but then they changed it to Street 64. No, not 64. 63, 61, and 62. It used to be just 63, but then ever since 256 got withdrawn, it's now 63, 1, and 2. 63, 61, 62. So yeah, even then, at least these two have like some form of like residential catchment. They don't just like beeline straight to the interchange, unlike the Jurong Industrial Services that start with like 24 something or like 25 something. So yes, these aren't even really. It's not like there is no. I just feel like when you say Tuas is very hub spoke, I would say 192 and 193 aren't even that hub spoke in the first place. Yes, it does bring you to Gao Circle and stuff like that, but it's just an intermediate stage, and it brings you to like, and one of them brings you to Pioneer, the other one brings you to Jurong West Avenue 4. And then 193, obviously, it goes to Lock Young as well, and Pioneer Road North. But I mean, like, it's not even like that hub spoke in the first place, because simply because of the existence of 192 and 193. So yeah, again, reason why it's hub spoke, it's niche. And NUS, yes, it's niche, but it's a school, and it's not really industrial estate. This one isn't as secluded, and that's why this one, like what SG buses mentioned, they could benefit from having a long distance bus service go inside, because 95 and 96, okay, but more of 95 is like currently really strained, so they would actually benefit from this to bring them to like other MRT stations, or not just that, but to bring them long distance if they are not taking the MRT. I mean, that comment was made in reference to like service 51, which is like the internal discussions, which might have been scrapped by now, I don't know, but it's like, yeah, it used to be a thing, or maybe it is still a thing, I don't know, but yeah. And the thing is, the moment you crayon all these bus services to like North-South line or like Northeast line, they are just going to be destroyed by Cross Island Line, because they would just tell you, hey, you can already take Cross Island Line to like to access like North-South line as well as like Northeast line, and therefore there isn't really a need for like a long bus service from here and then a long bus service to here. Now, this corridor, it just so happens to be a train. I mean here as well. Okay, it's not accurate. Sorry, it should be at Pasir Ris, not Tampines. And then Tampines North is here. Okay, so the thing is, even if this like lime green line that I'm drawing right now, even if it was a bus, I would be fine with it. It just so happens to be a train. As long as this, I mean, the reason why is because the projected demand is huge. That's why it's a train line and not a bus line. But here's the thing, if it's a bus line and there is demand for it, I would be fine as well. I'm not here to say that like, hey, trains can only be long distance or buses can only be long distance. No, it depends on context, like where you're like passing through, the demographics of those areas, and like the commuting patterns, project demand and stuff like that. I mean it's like, in some cases running rail is better, in some cases running bus is better, and there is no like fixed option based on like distance, long or short. It's just that if it's a short rail line, it might as well be an LRT. So I mean, yeah, It's not to say, again, just repeating myself, buses, you can have a long distance bus route as long as it doesn't really overlap too much with a future bus route or train route. I'm just saying this. It's not the case whereby trains can cause bus routes to be truncated, and in fact it's only really those useless ones. They would still keep at least one of them with at least some duplication of the rail line in case the rail line goes down and they need backup. So they wouldn't really choose stuff like 167 to be the backup. They would choose 980. Those that duplicate like a part of the rail line but not completely, they are the ones who are chosen as like the MRT redundancy bus services. And 400 is one of them from Thompson East Coast Line 19 to 22, which is like, if I'm not mistaken, it's Shenton Way, Marina Bay, Marina South, and Gardens by the Bay. So it's like 4 stations. And it's also the same thing for like 11 and 158 if they get, I mean, when they get extended to Founders Memorial. So it's like they would keep one and then the other one they would cow it. But okay, in this case, 167 is now officially off the topic of like rationalization. It is now completely safe from rationalization, thanks to the people who protested against it. So yeah, but I'm just explaining the logic that they would rather use this as like the backup service. So my point is that it's not that every single time train services would cause bus services to be truncated. Sometimes the existence of other bus services could make existing bus services get truncated as well, as seen in the case of like how these two bus services are like the replacement for 852 in that sense. So yeah, it's not just train bus rationalization. Bus rationalization can happen as well. So if there is a future bus line, be it bus or train, do not send an existing bus line to the areas that will be duplicated by this, unless you want to create a MRT redundancy when there isn't already one in the first place. So yes, because this thing would touch Gauss circle. Okay, I might as well let it swing up here. Because it will touch Gauss circle, you can take a bus to Gauss circle. I know it's hub spoke, but at least with this new cross island line, it's not going to be as crowded as like east-west line. It's going to offload it and actually bring you to like north-south line and northeast line. Again, I know this is kind of hub spoke, but I'm just saying that like it's not like they have no option to like relieve the crowd. It can be either bus or train, but I'm saying since there is already cross island line that's coming up, there is no point sending a long distance bus service from Tuas, which is a niche area and not a school area or a neighborhood area or like shopping district, CBD, central business district, or whatever. No, it is an industrial estate. The next part as to why Tuas is unfortunately hub spoke. I mean, I've talked about how the long distance bus services within Tuas got rationalized, not because of MRT, but because they really didn't have demand. I don't know if they would have demand today. I'm guessing not, because the way the commuting patterns work in Tuas is that, okay, let's say okay, demographics come into play as well, because most of the foreign workers that are in Singapore right now that work at Tuas, because their dormitories are at Tuas. Yes, there are dormitories in other areas such as like Senoko and Admiralty West as well, but I'm just saying for Tuas, the demographics are usually from the Indian subcontinent, which includes Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, as well as the Indochina countries. Now, if I remember my geography well, it's like Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand. Oh yeah, and Vietnam as well. Vietnam is pretty common. So typically these people, they would stay at their dorms, and then on weekdays they would roam to either Jukun or Boonlay, depending on what bus service they have. Like for example, this okay, I would even say 199, because 199 actually passes by like Jalan Bahar and a little bit of the dorms that are near NTU, I would say. And then 249, 251, and 252. Then Jukun, you obviously would have these. So during weekdays, they pretty much only commute from their dorms like after work. They go to have dinner, and then they go back. So when they go for dinner, it's probably around 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. And then when they go back, it's ranging between like 8 p.m. to around, but usually they stay on a little bit longer until like maximum 10:30 p.m., 11 p.m. Basically like whenever the last bus departs towards the looping point of like near their dorms, of course. So here's the thing. Normal commuters, they could go to these areas, be it Jalan Buroh or Tuas. Like basically, since, okay, let's assume they are locals living in Singapore, like citizens or maybe PRs, and then they work in Tuas or Jalan Buroh. In the morning, they would go to these their workplaces, and then 5 p.m., 6 p.m. they would actually okay, so unlike the people who are living in the dorms, they actually commute back to, sorry, unlike people who are living currently living in the dorms, they commute from their home to work, and then obviously they commute back home as well. Okay, sorry, I forgot to mention there are also some people from China. I don't know if there are any from South Korea, but based on demographics, I noticed most of them, like from East Asia, typically come from China. So I'm sorry I missed that out. Because when you crayon these bus routes out to like Tengah, oops, wrong color. When you crayon them out to like Tengah or even say Choa Chu Kang, Jurong East, Clementi, Buona Vista, I'm just giving you the extremes. You're actually catering towards the people that I've just highlighted in normal green. Not the ones who are living at the dorms, but just the ones who are living at the normal green. And you have to be sure you have like that many people that are like coming from this area or this area or this area or even like this area or even circle line, I don't know, but like you need to ensure that like there is a whole load of them that's like coming from the other parts of the island. But I'm sorry, that's not the case. Most of them are, they live at, I mean the locals, they probably live at Tengah or like West Coast, the west side basically. The cutoff, I would say, Jurong East and Clementi, to the west of those areas, and not to the east. And because of that, it's completely impractical to send any long distance bus service out of the boundary that I just described. Because you're only really catering towards the locals and not the people who live in the dorms, which is like sizable. Because when you crayon these bus routes, it's a lot of dead mileage, I would say. And the thing is, like, if it's a long distance bus services, they have already proven that they don't work. And that's why I even drew the boundary in the first place. And then the other thing is that for the for those who work in the dorms, let's talk about people coming their homeland being in the Indian subcontinent or like the Indochina countries. I would say that, okay, I'm pretty sure that like Peninsula Plaza at City Hall MRT, that mall is like catered towards Burmese people, just like how Lucky Plaza is mostly catered towards Filipinos. So yeah, in this case, where is City Hall that I've drawn? Okay, it's not accurate, but City Hall, people who are like Burmese who work at either Tuas or Jalan Buroh, they would take East-West line. And then next time, Jalan Buroh, they have like this Cross Island line as well. And then if they're coming from, oops, okay, sorry. And if they are, okay, this demographic group, Indian subcontinent, they would most likely be, okay, maybe I should draw downtown line. Again, it's not accurate. I'm really sorry. Either Little India or Kampong Glam area, which is like Bugis area. And then mostly these people, okay, I'm sorry, Bugis, it's not to scale, but like from Bugis, they can take East-West line, and from Little India, they typically take Northeast line to Outram Park, and then they change East-West line towards their dorms. And the thing is, you might be thinking, should we run a bus service from Tuas to Little India and Bugis? And the answer is no. Towards Bugis, they would just use East-West line as their reason for not running a bus service to Bugis in the first place. But I think most people they would go to like Little India or like let's say Farrer Park instead, because that's where the Indian subcontinent, like that's the cultural area for like that demographic of people. So you have to think about it, like is it really worth it to, and in fact I think 182 in the past, okay, no. 182 passes by Orchard, not Little India. You have to think of, would you rather run a bus service, a dedicated bus service from here, oops, from like this area to Tuas? Okay, whatever. I don't know why it does that, but it's useful in some areas, but it's useful in certain instances, but not others. I mean, the whole when I draw something like this and then the same color pops up, but yeah, sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Okay, but anyways, you have to think about it. If it's a direct bus service from like Little India to here, it obviously cannot run full day, and you need to like coordinate people at the timings, and this is like it gives people less flexibility. And Little India to Tuas or Jalan Buroh is very far, and typically because you already have like so many uh you already have a lot of options in terms of MRT, and even for buses there is still a way to commute using only buses from Little India to Tuas, because Singapore is like generally very convenient. So because of that, they're not going to create on a direct bus service, be it like Skip Stop Express or local, from Little India to Tuas alone. Because the MRT pretty much runs until like let's say 12 midnight. Okay, not really, but like you get the idea. Until like 11 p.m., you still have a train to go back to Tuas or Jalan Buroh in that case. I mean Jalan Buroh via either this or, okay, this is for Pandan, but mostly 78, or you go to Jurong East and you take 79. Again, it's a cost issue, and it's a manpower issue. Uh, because of everything I've said, it's not really worth it, because there is already rail in this case. And even if said rail is a bus line, it could still work. There is really no need for such a niche catchment when it's like so time dependent. This would only be a thing during weekends and not the whole weekend. You need to time the buses like accordingly, and it's pretty much just no different from like their own like workers transport kind of thing if it's timed. So yeah, again, distance wise, too far, it's not worth it. And just now, remember when I said like there is like sorry, there is like this option already when it comes to train. Something along those lines. I mean, these from Clementi or Jurong East, and then or like the GIS services. There are actually ways to get from Little India to Tuas just by bus alone. There are a few ways. So one way I can recommend is taking 960 from Little India to okay, unfortunately if you're coming from Farrer Park, then you still have to find some way to intercept 960. You can have 960 up till anyway, I'm just doing this as I go along. I did not script this or anything. To block 183 Bukit Panjang, then you transfer to 974 all the way to Joo Koon. I still think this is like the most efficient way. And then you can go to you can transfer to your GIS. Or if you want to transfer to like 193, that's a 192, 193, 194, 249, 251, 252. Alternatively, you could take any bus to Stevens MRT, like near it. Okay, like actually one stop after, or like Botanic Gardens MRT. You know, I should just put this as Botanic Gardens. And then you transfer to 154. You go all the way to Boon Lay. And then from Boon Lay, you transfer to like, sorry, you transfer to all the GIS or 192, 193, 194 at Boon Lay. That's another way. And then let me think about this. If you're coming from Farrer Park, your motive is to go west. If you're along Jalan Besar, then yes, you have 67 to intercept like 960. But let's say you are along Serangoon Road and you don't want to take MRT. So you take any bus service that turns left. Like let's say you think about it, there's like 21, 125, 130, and 139 that lets you turn left. And again, this thing limits you to St. Mike's. This thing limits you to St. Mike's as well. This one doesn't really bring you anywhere. So from Farrer Park MRT, you take 139 to Trellis. Again, I'm just, in reality, nobody would commute using this route. I'm just saying, you take 139 to Trellis, you cross the bridge, and then think about your options that you can go west, that to go west. You have this and this. Okay, unfortunately, this stupid thing is express. It shouldn't even be expressed in the first place, but there is 966 as well. This one brings you to Bukit Batok. You cannot really do anything with it. This one brings you to Panjang. And unfortunately, this one cannot really let you intercept 974. But again, I'm just telling you that transferring buses, yes, there is a way. Take 139, cross the bridge, transfer to 985, and then you intercept 174. Then you intercept your GIS at Boon Lay, or you just hit to like Joo Koon, or you hit to Tuas, and then you intercept like 274 and 247 and 248. Again, this bus via bus is actually quite inefficient. You might as well just take like your workers' transport, if anything, because replacing that with like a public bus isn't really gonna solve anything, I would say. It's just the same bus, just ran by a different operator. If it's just like a few trips only, there is really no point in doing that. Because when you have the MRT, in this context only, it's simpler because there's like less transfers as compared to like how many you have to make with like buses in general. It's just in this context, hey, This one might as well be a bus line. This one might as well be a bus line, and it would still work. It's just in this context, it just happens to be a train line, and unfortunately, it's an overcrowded train line. It just depends on what time you take it. But again, the really limiting factor as to why you shouldn't crayon long bus services into Tuas is because it's way too niche. You're not gonna be able to sustain the bus service. Your farebox recovery rate go would hit rock bottom unless you only run it during weekends and at those specific timings, like you actually survey the workers like, hey, I want to run a unidirectional or bidirectional bus service. What time am I supposed to run it on? Like, what time do you guys actually go out and hang out during weekends, during your day off from work? So yeah, there is one counterexample, but this is mainly because for the workers in Kranji, again, of the same pretty much the same demographic group, although it could be these people as well. Let's say they're coming from City Hall and then they take 960 as well, and then they take it all the way to the Kranji dorms. Okay, those that are on the lower end of Woodlands Road, like near Sungai Kadut, or if they are further in, they have the means to afford it, they take 960E and then they transfer to 925M. Either this way, direct, or they actually do this. Actually, the workers, they are actually learning to take 960E, change 925M, or if they are at the Senoko dorms or Admiralty West dorms, they might take they might be intercepting from 960E. I mean, and then transferring to like using 960E to intercept 169 or 856 to the dorms at the northern end of Singapore. And then this 925M, this is the reason why 925M gets demand even at like weekend nights. There's a reason why they put double deckers on like Sundays, like full day, even at night, because the workers are returning from Little India and Farrer Park, but mostly Little India, the cultural district, where most of their cooking, what do you call that? I'm sorry, I cannot think of the word. It's like where most of their cooking supplies come from, because Little India is, I mean, it's the cultural district. That's why they like to hang out at that place. They take 960 to Sungai Kadut Avenue, that side. I forgot what that road name is called. The one with 925 with no M. Those dorms near there. But if they're inside the Kranji dorms, they might take 960E. Because 960 is slower, they might take E and then they change 925M. But the reason why this one works is because their dorms are already along the route of 960, an existing service ever since I forgot when. I think 960 was introduced in like the late 1990s when the old 950, which is kind of like a parallel of 960E that actually goes to Shenton Way instead of Marina Center. So yeah, it just so happens that 960 is already along the route and 925 is already along the route. I mean, this one is kind of like an industrial service as well, but okay. It just so happens that like they have 960 at their doorstep. And Little India to Kranji area, let's just say broadly, Sungai Kadut and Kranji area, they use Whitley PIE BKE. But from Little India, if you were to reach Tuas, you have to find, okay, like you need Ophir Road, the fastest way, and then you need what do you call that? Actually, Ophir might not even be that fast because now it doesn't even touch MC, it's just ECP. So again, that alone means that like you need to find the fastest expressway. Like CT is jammed up, PIE is jammed up, you need to somehow um there is really no good way to do this, unfortunately, because of the roads. Like from Little India, you need to find the fastest way to touch AYE, and then from AYE you need to go to Tuas. That alone, it's already, I'm just gonna say that's already the reason why it's just not practical. I mean, you kind of have AYE, CTE, Clemenceau Avenue, then you go to Dhoby Ghaut and then up to Little India, and then the reverse direction you could use Bencoolen Street, Fort Canning Link, that road that like goes up the hill and then down again, Fort Canning to Clemenceau Avenue, then you go down Chin Swee, then at Outram you go up CT, then AYE. Yeah, you could do that, but realistically, I don't think such a service would even get demand in the first place. 960 just so happens to have demand, unlike whatever route this is going to be. This one just so happens to work. That's why it depends on context. You cannot just crayon bus services like this haphazardly, especially just because, oh, you hate hub spoke. For me, I think hub spoke in certain areas is actually necessary. Some areas should be run by hub spoke, whereas other areas they should have long distance bus services. Depends on context, okay? I still wish that like Tokyo has like a direct expressway bus to Matsudo, cause I hate Joban line, be it local or rapid. Just that I hate the rapid 10 times more than the local. Cause who the hell wants to squeeze on the train? But again, in Singapore's context, it's not like there are no buses. There are buses. It's just that in this case, the train just so happens to be more convenient. I shouldn't even say the train. This route just so happens to be way more convenient in this context from Little India to Tuas. Again, I'm saying it is dependent on context. I know I might sound like as if I'm contradicting myself, but I'm just trying to tell you the different nuances and contexts. Like why 960 works, but why Tuas doesn't work. Sorry, I mean why a long distance bus service to the dorms in Kranji works, whereas one in Tuas wouldn't work. Simple, because 960 has Bukit Panjang as a town and Woodlands, Marsiling Woodlands as a town to sustain it. But this kind of bus service, I'm sorry, you just cut through Clemenceau, you're not gonna get any demand. And when you try to induce any demand from like the surrounding residential areas, let's say Tiong Bahru, Lower Delta, AY, it's just not worth it, and it wastes a lot more time. And you might get clogged at the expressway as well. Either the exits or the expressway itself, it's not worth it in this context. But in 960's context, it works because PIE and BKE is like direct enough. It's like it's quite efficient. I know there are jams, but like when there is no jam, it is efficient. And anyway, when the dormitory workers are like going back to their dorms at night, PIE BKE, as long as nobody crashes their cars or heavy vehicles for that matter, or taxis or whatever vehicle, there's not going to be any congestion for the northbound side of PIE and BK, and that's why 960 works as a bus service. So a recap of the two main points. Number one is the niche catchment. The other one is the existence of parallel routes, be it bus or train. Because Tuas is so big, they need a lot of like these services. Again, don't mind me laundry listing them out. I have to laundry list in this case just to show you how big Tuas actually is. Technically, this one counts as well. Okay, fine. Even if you ignore this and this, Tuas in itself is very, very big. Okay, I'm just gonna carve out these ones because this is more of like Jukun International Road area, and then is this even like close enough to Tuas? Cause This one is Jalan Samulun, this one is Shipyard, and then this one is Jukun Circle. But okay, whatever. I'm just, for simplicity's sake, let's just call this one Tuas. Alright. Main point, again, Tuas is so big you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bus services, where 9 of them are hub spoke, and these two are pretty much, it's like medium distance. Technically, this one could be medium distance as well. So yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the roads inside Tuas. Because here's the thing. You cannot make such a service whine too much as well. Even if you somehow manage to create on a bus service that uses this corridor, or like let's say uses, I don't know, this corridor, or even this corridor, it's like you still have to funnel the other GIS into this kind of service. It's like you still have to funnel them like this, like this, like this, like this. Instead of funneling them to MRT, you are still funneling them to the bus in a way. So it is still kind of like hub spoke in a way. You're not solving the problem, you're just like shifting the problem in this sense. And not just that. In future, as I've talked about before, cross-island line. Like seriously, like you have one corridor duplicated by another corridor, regardless of bus or train. When you have duplication like this, it's just telling you that like there is, at this point in time, there is really, unless you want an interim bus service or what, there is really no point trying to create on a long distance bus service out of Tuas. The thing is like you can get catchment here, but it's all gonna be swallowed up by CRL. It's not because CRL is a train, but CRL is a transport option. If it was a bus, I would have said the exact same thing. And if you make it crayon through Jalan Ahmad Ibrahim, or maybe here, okay, let's say Jalan Ahmad Ibrahim, you're not getting enough catchment from the Tuas side. So again, that alone fails. Because think about it, yes, you have the main road, but you're still asking these people to hub spoke, like all the in-between areas, you're still asking them to hub spoke to this trunk service. This trunk service that you may propose, it's gonna be exactly the same as a train, just that it's not a train, it's a bus in this context. Just in this context. It's not any less hub spoke. It's just the difference between a bus hub spoke or a bus MRT hub spoke is the same thing. You're not making a difference. Even more so when you try to crayon bus services from Tuas outside of the acceptable area, which we have just discussed. Because, like I've said, look at the demographics. How many of them are dormitory workers and how many of them are like actual locals, like citizens or permanent residents that actually work in the industrial estates? Just how many of them live here? Come on. They would choose to live near their workplace, right? Unless they don't have a choice. Again, I talked about this before. It's niche. You cannot just pick a random MRT station and just say, oh, I'm going to send a CDS like bus service, except that it's industrial direct service. It doesn't work like this. CBD needs it because the population density there is like higher as compared to like the niche industrial estate. Because people here, most of them, they get dismissed on time. Like they finish work on time. They have some spare time to wait. They have like a little bit of leeway before the CDS actually comes. So yeah, this one is more fixed. This one is not really fixed at all when it comes to like, oh, what time do you end work or something along those lines. Yes, I know shifts, they can be fixed as well, but I'm just saying it makes more sense to for a CDS as compared to like an IDS concept. And even if you want an IDS, I'll show you one. Sorry about that, I zoomed in too much. Remember, You don't go around crayoning a long distance industrial direct service from Tuas to Northeast Line, North South Line, Circle Line, Downtown Line, Thompson East Coast Line, Cross Island Line, whatever. You don't do that. If the priority housing is here, focus on here and not the other areas that can be achieved by either taking bus and transferring or taking MRT and transferring or whatever. Again, it's our necessity because, again, this is a niche area. I have to remind you, this is a niche area. Connectivity is like the least of concerns when you're talking about a really, 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 really niche area. Technically, this one is a niche area as well. That's why it has only 179 and 199. There used to be 174 inside as well, and I think some of the I don't know if like the Night Riders used to go inside, but I mean like 174 already got truncated to Boon Lay, no longer NTU. But like even this area, the niche areas are like still kind of hub spoke. Although to be honest, it might be beneficial in this case because population density here is higher. I mean it's students, like literally. I don't know, you might benefit from a new trunk bus service inside and not being so reliant on JRL. If JRL poofs out, you at least have a new bus service. You at least have a bus service as a backup, maybe 974. I don't know how you're going to do that or how you're going to tie in the rationalization of this, and this, but like, I would just say, if it's a niche area, don't think too much about, oh, that area is like way too hub spoke. Historically, sometimes history also proves that like some long distance bus services just for whatever reason don't work. So again, conceptually, 254 goes to Jukun, but during peak hours, unidirectional. This is for the locals and PRs and not necessarily for the dorm workers, although there might be a use for dorm workers as well, for them to access like Jukun. I mean, 254 and X. I mean, this is like conceptually. This is service is not real. It's just conceptual. They, I mean, like, whoever can use this service. I'm just saying this is crayoned because there are actually people who work in the industrial estates. They stay in Tengah, like I've discussed before. So what you do is just make it take the fastest route into Tengah. Like you can wind inside Tengah, that's fine. But en route, Jurong West Avenue 2, Avenue 4, you could make it express or you could make it call stop depending on how you want to do it. Pioneer Road North, Upper Jurong Road, Benoi Road. And the arrangement is that for the Tuas bound, you board at the bus stop at Benoi Road and not inside Jukun because the entrance to Jukun can get clogged up. So the how do you say it? The looping point bound, you would let it skip Jukun interchange, but the return bound, because there is actually a slip road inside Jukun, you could make it call inside Jukun before going to Tengah. I've discussed this with my friend before and he said it was okay to make it call. So yeah, and the thing is, this 254X, again, the reason why this one has to be bidirectional and it's not like a feeder express loop thingy, in this context it operates a bit more like 170X conceptually speaking. But this one, I would say, the reason why it has to be bidirectional is because you at the morning peak, you don't want any bus that goes here like this. You get what I mean? And evening peak, it makes no sense to send a bus service down like this. Okay, maybe during evening peak, if like let's say the dormitory workers actually return to the I mean it doesn't make any sense. They would most likely be at Jukun or Boon Lay, so never mind. AM peak like this, PM peak like this. Simple. And because of that, you do not make it loop. You make it unidirectional for AM peak as well as PM peak. Because ultimately you're trying to separate the demand that's going to Joo Koon and the demand that's going to Tengah. So yeah, I mean, I know I made it called Joo Koon, but it's still some form of like separation at least. I know it's kind of like a 979/979X solution, but I mean, conceptually, it's supposed to do that. Whether it works or not is another thing, but I'm just saying conceptually it's meant to do that, like meant to separate load, demand. And yeah, that's the reason why it has to be unidirectional, because simply because the demand is just unidirectional for one peak and unidirectional for the other peak. And obviously this one wouldn't be like, oh, this one runs like I don't know how many trips per day. It's just like a few trips per day during the peak periods, because it's supposed to function like CDS but industrial direct service, just shorter to Tengah. And the thing is, if Choa Chu Kang actually has space, you could even extend this to Choa Chu Kang, provided people working at Tuas actually live at Choa Chu Kang and not just one or two people, but like a sizable crowd of them. This is useful because at least you would reduce the strain on JRL, Jurong Region Line, a little bit. Because Cross Island Line is 6 cars with an option to extend to 8 cars, but Jurong Region Line is like half that capacity. So yeah, that's a reason why in this context only, sending 254X to Choa Chu Kang, if you have space to park it somewhere, it's actually viable. I'm not saying normal 254, I'm saying 254X. And the reason why Tengah is because 254 is like, there's an express sector here and it's already quite direct, and it takes the most direct route. And Tengah is where the housing estate is. Because of the road layout, Jurong West Avenue 2, 4, Pioneer Road North, Upper Jurong Road, it just fits in this context. That's the whole reason why I said you can at most crayon one to Tengah, or maybe one to Jurong East to complement 78, 79, Clementi as well, or Choa Chu Kang in the most extreme scenario, or even Buona Vista at the most extreme scenario. And even though I don't recommend it, just up to this line, that's the reason why a medium distance service out of Tuas, you could still talk about it as long as you know what you're doing. But long distance out to like north south line, northeast line, no, just no. It's not because I'm like biased towards anyone, I'm just explaining why they don't work. I hope you guys understand.